in your contract, what happens if there is a disagreement?
That's in the contract. So we have that to fall back on. So it's not a new conversation. It's not oh, hey, by the way, you only get, X amount of hours. There's no surprise there.
Contracts are really about relationships because, man, when things go south, and they will, or when you hit a speed bump, you want to have something to go back to that says, hey, this is what we talked about. And it really just makes tough conversations easier.
Mm-hmm. On this episode of the podcast, you're gonna learn how to legitimize your business and limit the chances of you getting sued or really bad stuff happening. Also, I'm not a lawyer, so don't take any legal advice from me. All that and more on this episode. What's up, my friend? Hey, welcome to the show. This is the Grow Your Video Business Show. My name is Ryan Coral. I'm your host. I'm really glad that you are here. If you're a video business owner and you want to work on the operations, the sales, the marketing, the things in your business that make it run and go, not the shooting and the editing stuff. Like those are the things that probably comes way more naturally to you than all of the other things. This is the place to hang out. The community that I've curated. These are your people. So I'm super glad that you're here. And this episode is one of those. On the outside, it's not super sexy. We're talking about contracts. I'm talking with a lawyer. Ugh, really cool, Ryan. But trust me, if you don't have your legal stuff figured out in your business, or it's been a while since you've thought about it, listen to this whole episode. There's lots of goodness in here that can save so much of, I was gonna say save your life, but I don't think it'll save your life, but maybe it'll come close. So I'm really excited about that. Also, I wanna let you know of a cool opportunity that I have coming up. I'm gonna be doing a live Q&A, a coaching call. Normally I reserve my coaching calls with clients, with paying clients. I do a monthly call inside of the 10X filmmaker community, and I am gonna be opening this opportunity up for everybody. But in order to get all the details, you're gonna have to go to the 10X filmmaker page and register there. So you do that by going to studiosherpas.com/10X filmmaker. And currently this moment, there should be a wait list for the 10X filmmaker community. So you can learn all about 10X filmmaker there, but the invitation for this coaching call is going to be sent to you once you register on that page. So go to studiosherpas.com/10X filmmaker, give me your email and your name, and then we'll send you the information about the coaching call. And I'm just gonna hang out. I'm gonna answer whatever questions you guys bring. It should be a good time, and hopefully it gives you a sense of at least a part of what 10X Filmmaker is all about, and figure out if it's something that you should investigate a little bit more. But that is promised to be a good time, and if not, I'll give you your money back. See what I did there? It's a free event. Yeah, okay. Anywho, let's get into this episode because it's really important, and I'm glad you're here. Good for you on spending some time thinking about your business, working on your business, and not just in it. So here we go. Roll the tape, DJ. What's up, friends? Welcome to another episode of the show. I just can't contain myself. I'm super excited about my interview this morning with Ashley Fillingim, who is the managing partner at Sandstar Law, LLC, and also president of Kick Ash Life, LLC. I did say Kick Ash Life, in case you're wondering. Her name is Ashley. I think you guys might get what's going on there. Ashley, from the beaches of somewhere, joining us. Thank you so much for being with me this morning.
I am so happy to be here with you. Yes, I'm at a little beach spot, so it's a good spot to be right now.
Yeah.
But time with you is always good.
Always. That's the spirit. That's the right thing to say when you're on somebody's show. You're like, is Ryan, does he get serious on the show at all, or is he just gonna make fun of himself? I think today I'm in one of those moods, so this should be a good time.
Let's go.
Before we hit rolling or recording or whatever that thing is called, you were just talking about your love language. And I've read the book, The 5 Love Languages. Maybe you should come out with a new edition, a revised edition where you share your love language, which is...
Contracts. I know, such a nerd. But contracts are relationships. They're really about relationships. So yeah, that's a love language.
How in the world does that become, or how did this become a thing for you where you said that this is important to me, I really care about this?
So I spent my entire legal career at a very large international law firm. 20 years there, a decade as a partner.
Wow.
And I sold my wedding ring, as one does, and booked a trip to Italy. And I'm in Italy with 10 other women, and I'm the only one on the corporate straight and narrow. The only one. Everybody else is an entrepreneur. We have chefs and influencers and podcasters, just the gamut, coaches, this kind of thing. And so I'm learning a whole new way of being from these women. And we're hiking along the Amalfi Coast. There's this thing called the Path of the Gods. And there are cliffs, and it's rugged, it's beautiful. And I realize that we have not signed a waiver. Right?
Oh, yeah. I can't wait to go on a trip with you. This is going to be great.
I know, it's so much fun. But the lawyer in me was listening to these women who were building these amazing businesses and did not know how to protect themselves. And I just found a passion for helping solopreneurs or small business owners figure out how to protect these beautiful businesses that they're building and all of that. And so that's how I ended up there. And what I realized along the way is that contracts can be daunting and can be sort of that thing that's on the to-do list that nobody wants to think about because it doesn't sound like a lot of fun. But I really feel like contracts, we were joking before we got on that contracts are my love language because contracts are really about relationships. They are relationship builders in that, they help us get really clear at the beginning of a relationship how we're going to go on. And then they're relationship sustainers because, man, when things go south, and they will, or when you hit a speed bump, you want to have something to go back to that says, hey, this is what we talked about. And it really just makes tough conversations easier.
I love that. It is so important. One of my favorite stories. I won't mention his name. He's okay with me if I do, but I was coaching him, another video guy, and he'd had a couple of pretty good size clients, and he was working in the real estate industry specifically. And I said, well, what did the contract say? When you were, doing this thing? And he's like, it's just I don't use contracts. And I'm like, wait, what? And he had been in business for years at this point.
Okay.
And I'm just wait. I don't understand what you're before you start the project, they signed some kind of a, contract. And he's like, no, it's just handshake and, they know what they're getting and I know what I'm doing. And I was like, oh no, dude, this could be really, really bad. And that probably gives you hives as I share that story.
It hurts my heart. Yeah, because, for 20 years, I was a litigator. I still litigate. That is, I do conflict for a living, right? Where you go to court and you argue about things, including contracts or the lack of a contract. So, you know what could go wrong, and you instinctively knew what could go wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, exactly how you explained how a contract, at least how it's worked for us, for me to fall back on, perfect example this morning, I'm texting the guys, our guys are filming a 3-day course creator at our studio, 3 days of filming, 3 days of production. But in the agreement, it was 20 hours of filming is what we said that we were going to do over the course of 3 days if we needed all 3 days. And day one, they went over. Day two, they went over. Not over 20 hours, but just over longer than we anticipated. And the guys were just on a roll. They're like, we'll just, we'll finish this module. And I messaged the guys this morning. I was like, hey, how many hours are we at? Because I know we're like close. And the client is just assuming, I think, because she flew in from out of town. She's from Colorado, her and her business partner. And they're like, well, schedule-wise, we're gonna go till 6:30. That's when we should be able to wrap everything. And I was like, and how many hours are we at? And they're like, we're at like 30 hours right now. I was like, 30 hours right now?
Oh.
So we had a conversation with the client. I said, Brent, you've got to let the client know we're already at the hours, and if they want to go all day, we're going to have to talk about overages. And that's in the contract. So we have that to fall back on. So it's not a new conversation. It's not oh, hey, by the way, you only get, X amount of hours. There's no surprise there. So I love the work that you're doing because, I've been doing this work for 20 years and I've gotten burned, a handful of times along the way. And every time we get burned, it's like, oh, let's not make that mistake again. So I've learned plenty of lessons and keep learning them. I'm certain that early on in my days, I was connected to a couple of different lawyers that were like, hey, you should do this. And I had multiple lawyers looking at our contracts and like, hey, tweak this, change this, make this, that. But I forget that not everybody has 20 years of experience and has made some, or been sued and, has these things. So the work that you're doing is so vital and so important. Obviously, number one, have a freaking contract before you engage and work with somebody. But what are some things that people need to be thinking about that where do I even start? What do I put into a contract? What's important to put into a contract?
Right. So I want to touch on two things that you just mentioned and then flow into that because it made your conversation so much easier, right?
Yeah.
When you had to have that tough conversation. And another thing you noted, and so when we're thinking about what needs to go into a contract, think of a contract in your business not as something static, but as a living, breathing document. It's going to evolve with you. It's going to evolve with your business. And so if your business is growing rapidly and you're having a lot of client experiences, and you, just like you said, you've learned, then it's definitely time, maybe every 6 months, at least every year, to go back to your contract and take a look at it and make sure everything you learned, all the tough things that you learned in the last year, are now taken care of in that contract. And so, to your question, what do you want to think about goes into the contract? What I would like to do is ask your folks questions. Like, come away with more questions than answers because it's your contract. It's your relationship with the client. And so what you really want to do is figure out how you want that relationship with your client to flow. That's your call. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really good. So you answered one of my questions. I wrote, how often should contracts be updated? Because I know, we've updated ours a bunch. And even, as recently last year, we changed our payment structure. We used to always be 50% to book us our services, and then the remaining percentage would be due, the remaining 50% would be due on delivery. And we said, you know what, like let's, for those clients that take a longer time to give us feedback and finish a project, let's actually just ask for more upfront. And so we revised the contract to say, hey, 70% to book us, and then we'll do 30% on the back end, which, that's one small, subtle thing, but in the long run, it's helping, and we've got a place to point back to when people are like, "What's the payment schedule, and why is it like this?" And I didn't even read what I wrote, or I didn't even read what I signed. Like, how many people sign contracts that don't actually, read the things?
Goodness. True.
Hand raised.
Well, so to your point, like anytime there's a change in the way you're doing something, or you even just want to try to go about something different, so long as you put it in black and white. And make sure there's no surprises. So on average, at minimum, look at what your contract says every year. Let's say you come off of a client project and it was a tough one. Not all of them are. Some of them are beautiful and they flow right. But let's say you get through one and you go, oh man, I don't want to do that again. What did you learn? And then go back to your contract and make sure that that's in there.
Yeah, that's really good. We do when we present to a client, we'll have our proposal. So like the proposal sheet, page, whatever says, we're doing this video, it's going to be this long. It's going to, due dates, all of that stuff. That's on the proposal. And then our contract is all of the legal jargon, right? It's all of the, confidentiality, all of the things.
Yeah.
Do those, and this is maybe we're getting into the weeds here, but I'm just like curious up front because I would assume a lot of other people are doing this because of the software that we use. Currently we're using Dubsado, which we can build our proposals there. And then when we deliver, we send a link to a client that's like page 1 is the proposal. They click, yep, accept the proposal. That looks good. But then page 2 is where they actually sign the contract. And then page 3 is where they can like send us their payment information. I'm curious to know, like that seems like 2 separate things. So we might say one thing on our proposal, but if our contract doesn't say those deliverables or those same things that we're putting in our proposal, are they 2 completely separate things?
That's a really good question. Yeah, it's a very good question. So it depends on how, such a lawyer answer, right? It depends. It depends. It depends on what your contract says. So I like to structure a contract this way. All the basics, all the things we talked about, and we can go through a list, but the confidentiality, the intellectual property, who owns the content, what are the payment terms, this kind of thing, all the basics in one document, and then reference either the proposal or what you would call a statement of work specific to this client. What is the time frame? What are all the things specific? So if your proposal is what they're signing on to and accepting, and it's rolled into the contract, then it all is part of the agreement. But if your contract has things that are completely different from the proposal, arguably the contract terms rule.
Yeah, that makes sense. Even as you're saying that, I'm thinking there is someplace in our contract that references, like it's like, I don't know if it's appendix or something like that, but it says like these are, the scope is on the proposal sheet.
Yeah, because you really want to minimize confusion, right? I mean, it only serves you if what's on the proposal sheet matches what's in the contract. That just makes for a happy relationship with the client. And where things get tricky in terms of contract interpretation is if you've got 2 competing documents.
Yeah.
That's where you've just created a problem for yourself. So it's just better if everything marries beautifully. Yeah.
Somebody had said, like, instead of having your contract or updating your contract, there's something that you can do on your website. Like if you have like legal terms on your website, and like you can refer to that. Is that even like what do you know what I'm talking about?
I do. For for a video production contract, I would not love that. But let's say that you're selling coaching services. It's not something that's negotiable. This is the way that I sell my service. These are the terms and conditions of working with me. And if you click through this link on my website and here's the payment plan, we'll get started. Then you could put in that process your terms and conditions. And that's what is agreed to. And that becomes that is your contract right there. Yeah. It's not negotiable. This is how you work with me. But I would think for video production or film production, it's more complicated. And there is some back and forth that goes on. Just depends on the stakes, the budget.
Yeah, that's good. That's helpful. I'm just trying to think of other scenarios where people are, they may have heard one thing. And what's interesting, I've probably talked to over 20 years or hired, maybe 10 different lawyers for different things. And everybody has their own little nuance. And I could have a contract that I had a lawyer, paid a lawyer to do. And I would hand that contract over to, as we change lawyers, and everybody would get in there and like strike this, change this, do this. Like, what is there's not even, it's like everybody has their own creativity and their own approach. So that's a little, I shouldn't say baffling, because if you gave me footage and then you gave footage to, 3 other video people, we all would come up with something that you're like, oh yeah, that's actually good, but it's different.
Yeah, well, there's an art to it. So
that's good.
two things are going on. When I look at a contract, I think about the 20 years of fighting over contracts, of litigating, of things when big companies have gone to court over it. Now, I don't want to scare anybody because if we do this right, you're not going to court. But because of my experience and my background, I've seen things that could go wrong. So when I look at a contract, that experience plays into it. Probably the 10 attorneys you've worked with each have had different experiences, so they see different road bumps, speed bumps in the contract. Here's the other thing. Do you want to know why lawyers talk so weird in contracts? Like, why do you get that back and you think, why can't they just speak like a human? And for the most part, a good attorney is going to try to phrase it in a way that makes sense to humans. Okay. But there are some things that over the years, courts, so the way our law develops is courts interpret things for many years. And then they refer back to cases that happened in 1920 when this issue first came up. And so courts get used to, and lawyers get used to seeing language written in a certain way. And it's just easier and safer to give folks something in the language that they're used to.
Yeah. Well, it's something that's been like signed off on and like, this is the law.
Exactly. So that's why lawyers talk like in a ridiculous way sometimes. It's sometimes if they're really working on it, they're doing it for your protection.
Yeah. I'm going to make an assumption here only because I've been there, but I would say that most people that are starting out their video business or have been doing it for, I don't know, a few years, 5 years, 7 years, they went on LegalZoom. I mean, today, like ChatGPT, they have maybe some kind of a contract that they're using. At what point should somebody have actually hire a lawyer or hand a contract? What does that process look like, or what should it look like for a video business owner to say like, okay, I need to actually get legit somehow. I don't want to spend thousands of dollars to have to do that. How do we not scare people away from taking the step to like, you need to legitimize your business and protect yourself, and also set yourself up for success with your clients?
The bigger your business gets, the more exposure you have. The bigger the contract is, the more money that's coming in from one particular client, the bigger your exposure. So yes, they're on some level, I appreciate that LegalZoom is making it accessible, but it's not going to be necessarily tailored to you. And I have had folks share with me that as you work with LegalZoom, little by little by little, the fees will add up to be about what you'll pay an attorney in one sitting. ChatGPT, we're early in the process with AI on this kind of thing, but I, for fun, asked it to write a couple of contracts for me. And in one area, it did very well. And in another area, it just was not something that I would want to put in front of somebody because the AI is still learning. And also, you really, in order to have a good contract that way, you need to know what to ask it and what to tell it to put in there. So all of that said, the bigger your business gets, the more I would hope that, and I would encourage you to tie this down with an attorney. But in the short run, you could, as your business is just starting out, you can research online and find basic forms. And then you can tailor those forms to your business. And, I'd be happy to give your folks a list of things that if you are in video production or film production, things you might want to think about. You want to go there?
Yeah, please. Let's do it.
Okay. Let's do a list. I made a note because I love your folks already, and this was fun. So I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions. There is no one set answer. It's just things to think about as you're structuring a relationship at all. And then Ryan, what I've missed, because you've been in this for so long, tell me what I've missed and the questions that we need to be thinking about. Okay.
All right.
Let's go. Number one, who are the key players? So, first and foremost, identify your business, not you as an individual, but hopefully you have, as you've structured your business, set up a separate corporate entity that is the entity with whom the client is contracting. That just protects your personal assets and keeps them separate from your business assets. And then who is the client? And if it's a company, who is the client contact and who has the final sign off? And if in the project you are going to be using third parties or independent contractors to help with some of the work, then get clear about who is going to do the work. Any thoughts there?
Yeah, that's really good. I love even just for somebody to think through having something to protect their personal. And the way that I've interpreted that, it means when I first started out and I wasn't really an entity or anything, I was just like a soul, I don't know, soul something.
You were Ryan.
Yes, I was Ryan doing business as me. And if I really screwed up a job, say I got a $10,000 check and I really screwed up a job, there was no business entity, so I could be sued, and they might be able to take my car or my house or something. If I don't have $10,000 to give them, then something in my personal can be taken. If you create a business entity, they can only come after the business so long as you have a contract that is going through the business, but your personal stuff should be protected. Is that kind of the very layman's terms?
You nailed it. And here's the caveat to it. Okay. You can have a separate LLC for your business. It's super important to, like you said, keep your business assets and your personal assets separate. But as you're doing business, the best way to make sure that distinction is recognized and honored, keep separate bank accounts, keep separate records. Do not mix and mingle. Get yourself a separate debit card or corporate card where it's very clear where the money is going. And then work with your accountant to figure out how to pay you a salary or a take out of the profits in a way that makes the most sense for your tax purposes. That is not my area. Numbers are not my thing, but definitely talk with somebody about how you structure that.
Yep, super good, and recommended reading Profit First, Mike Michalowicz, or listen to the interview that I did with Mike, I don't even know, 100 episodes ago. Really, really good as you're thinking about how to structure your finances. But yes, I think that fortunately I had somebody 20 years ago when I was starting my business, like, hey, you got to create like a separate bank account and like put everything through there. So all of my bookkeepers and CPAs have been so grateful that there's no mingling of my personal purchases and expenses and my business. That just makes life apparently so much better for all the people that can help you.
And not to go too far in the weeds on this, but you don't need an attorney to do this, and you don't need LegalZoom to do this. You can go on your Secretary of State's website in your state and follow the instructions. Most of them, it's online now. For most states, it's not very expensive at all. And just get yourself an LLC. It's very, very straightforward. You don't need an attorney to do that. Don't do a DBA, doing business as. That doesn't offer the same protections. But yeah, it's something you can do today within an hour and a half.
Love it.
You want to hit the other things?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. All right. Scope of work. Describe the project. That seems pretty self-evident, but the bigger the project is, the more specific, obviously, you would want to get. Project milestones. When are you promising to have what done? What are the key performance indicators, and what are the deadlines for it? What if something changes along those milestones? How are you going to handle that, right? And then tied to that is the budget. So what is the budget for the project? If you're going to get specific about what the overhead is in the project, then what happens if the budget changes? And how are you guys going to address that? Deliverables. What is it you're promising to give the client? In what format? And how are you going to deliver it? Is it going to be electronic? Is it going to be hand delivered? Is it going to be presented with a presentation? I mean, you tell me all of the ways that you could technologically deliver something.
Yes, and snail mail. I would say a couple things we've done is put in like here's our basic overage fee. Like if we do like go beyond scope, just so that we have that in a particular case where we might have a huge crew, like that number is actually going to have to change, right? If we just say $200 an hour, if we go beyond, that's not covering our costs. So we would have to adjust that. But another thing that we've done is in our deliverables, even in the scope of work, we use, my favorite phrase is up to, meaning we're gonna deliver an up to 2-minute video. So where it didn't become a legal thing, but I realized I'm like, oh, this could be something. I think we offered up to 2 rounds of revisions. And the video after 1 round of revisions, it was complete. And then the client came back and said, well, we didn't use that second round of revisions, so can we, and it just kind of like was opening this whole can of worms of like, and I'm like, no, we can't do, like, we were doing this thing. So we've gone back, and anytime that we're saying like, filming up to 1 day or filming up to 10 hours or delivering up to 2-minute piece or up to 4 short reels, that phrase, I don't know how that holds up legally, but at least from a conversation, as we're trying to help guide our clients to say like, well, it says, we're gonna do this, up to, and I don't know, any thoughts on that?
I like it. You've given yourself some room to move because, in the work that you're doing, it's not cookie cutter. It's not set every time of how it's exactly going to flow. So you've given yourself some space for that, but also, like you said, some foundation to have a productive conversation when things change.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's great.
Sweet.
All right, a few more things to think about. Payment terms, obviously. How are you going to get paid? You talked about this earlier. Do you want 50% up front, 50% at the end, 70% up front, 30% at the end? Is there a discount if they pay everything up front? Mm-hmm. And then what does it mean the project is finished and now I get paid? What does that look like? Also, if I've invoiced you and you don't pay, what does that look like? Like if the project's ongoing and they're consistently late with staggered payments, how are you going to manage that? Is there a late fee? Do you stop work? There's no one set answer. I mean, have you run into that?
Yeah, we have run into that, and in our contract, we have a fee, and it's like, I don't know if it's daily or monthly, like additional incurred charges. We've never charged those fees, but I think there's only been one time ever that we just had a client, maybe 2 times ever, we just had a client just totally ghost us and basically like not pay us, and it wasn't significant enough for us to seek like legal outside of maybe a letter. And I think it's been helpful, but we haven't enforced.
You don't have to. It's there to guide the conversation, and your contract probably has a clause in the end that some lawyer kicked in there with their lawyer language that says, if we waive a certain term in the contract one time, it doesn't mean we've waived it for all times. So let's say the first 3 times you decide not to impose the late fee and you work it out, but man, time 5 or 6, you're over it. You might wish to impose the late fee if you continue working with them. So, and that also goes to something that's sort of always at the end of a contract. When you start to think about how a relationship is going to start, also think about how it's going to end.
Yeah.
In a perfect world, you've done the project start to finish. What does finish look like? What does that mean? When is it over? And if you can define that, then you don't get what you were just talking about. Oh, wait, can we just do this one other thing? Can we just do this one other thing? Yeah, that's money that adds up.
Right.
Also, if you're in the middle of the relationship and it gets testy on one side or the other, is there a walk away? Or you've got a lot of time and effort invested in this. Is there what we call notice and an opportunity to cure, which is just lawyer language for, hey, this isn't working for me. What can we do to fix this? I'm going to give you 30 days to get this back on track, or then we need to part ways. And has that come up for you before?
That has not, but I had dinner with our course creator client that's in town last night, and they almost hired us last year to do this project, but they're based in Colorado. They found a team in Colorado. They said, you know what, like we're gonna use this local team because we're gonna save some money. Well, they said that it wasn't a great experience filming, and then they got the edits, and they're like, ooh, these are not really good. So they had a hard conversation with the filmmaker, and the filmmaker fixed some stuff in the edit, but it just still was like really missing the mark. And that filmmaker actually totally refunded like all of the project money. And we were joking as we were saying goodnight. She said, you know, like, if it doesn't go great, you know, we'll ask for our money back. And I laughed, and I'm like, haha, but it's in our contract. We're not giving you your money back.
That's right.
And I was a little bit shocked, but I kind of get it. From the filmmaker, I felt bad that they gave everything back. I'm like, there's still like, I mean, there was time involved and there was expectations set, and they didn't live up to all of the expectations, but they did some. And I would just be really like, actually, no, we did have one client. It wasn't a walk away. We did have one client that we missed one shot. It was actually when we were filming weddings back in the day. We did not get a long enough shot of the bride walking down the aisle with her daughter, a long enough shot for this bride to be happy. And I wasn't happy either. I was annoyed that my team didn't do the things that they should have done. And so when we delivered all this stuff, I think they ended up paying, you know, $6,000 or $7,000 for this whole thing. And she was also a photographer in the industry. And so they saw their first version of their video. They're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. We love this so much. There's so many tears. And then a month later, after they had gotten all of their stuff, a month later, I got this nasty phone call from the groom, and he left a voicemail, and I called him back almost immediately. And I was like, hey, and his name is Ryan. I'm like, hey man, I'm like, you know, really sorry, like, talk to me. And he was calm, like he like simmered down or whatever. And he's like, oh, you're actually a real person. I'm like, yeah, like, how can I help? Well, then I ended up on a call with the bride, and she, at the end of the day, they wanted all of their money back.
No.
Oh yeah. And she's like, I've contacted other people in the industry, and I've asked them, like, what should I expect here? You know, because she's like, we're in the same industry and we're gonna cross paths, and I don't want there to be any bad blood or anything. And I'm like, yeah, no, I'm willing to, you know, I was gonna not charge them for the ceremony edit. I was gonna take some money off of the whole project. You know, like, I don't even know, 10%, which in my mind, we gave them so much. And she said, nope, we think the right thing to do is for you to refund our entire thing. And I'm like, for one, I mean, I get it. It was an important shot, and I'm willing to, like, you know, meet you somewhere. But we got sued. Like, they sued us, and we ended up settling. And I think we paid them like $3,500. What I didn't know or realize at the time was I think we could have had that covered by our errors and omissions insurance that we had. So darn it, $3,500 that we could have had somebody else pay. But regardless, that was a gross situation, and I've never run into them since then. But I was just really sad for both of them to kind of turn into these kind of ugly people. But anyway,
that is the unfortunate thing, and that's there's another advocacy piece for having in your contract what happens if there is a disagreement. What are the limitations of liability here? Because the unfortunate thing about humans, there's so many good humans. We all start good, but when something goes wrong, sometimes folks become opportunists and want more than they're entitled to, and think they can use their leverage or their connections or all of this to take one small thing and kick the door wide open. And so I hate to hear that happened to you, but you definitely learned about your insurance options, and you probably tied up your contract a little bit better, or maybe you got more selective about your brides.
Yeah. Well, actually, we
Yeah,
just stopped doing weddings, and then no, I'm
there
just
you
kidding.
go.
So I think there's a lot of good stuff in here. Are you the person that if somebody had a contract, they could bring their contract to you to have it audited, or is there someplace else you would recommend people go to do that? Because it seems like a smart thing that we're probably all thinking right now.
I love to do that. I love to help write them. I love to take a look and say, hey, maybe think about this or think about that, or let's update it based on what you've learned in your business. But there's one thing I would lose complete credibility with your audience for, and you, if I didn't raise it. It would be like not capturing that shot of walking down the aisle. Okay. And it's ownership of the content. Okay. So who owns what's produced? Is your name on it anywhere? Do they get to slice and dice it later? Can you use it for promotional purposes? And one other thing, anything that the client is giving you to put in the video, you want your contract to say they have the right to give that to you. And if they don't have the right, then the fault is on them and not on you.
Yeah.
So, we could spend an entire hour on ownership alone, and we don't want to go there, but it's definitely something you want to be thinking about in that contract. So yeah, you can tell I geek out about this stuff. I love it. Not necessarily for the words in the contract, but for my deep love for business owners and protecting what you are creating. It matters so much.
Yeah, that's really good. We do, just for reference, we do shared rights. That's the term that we use. So, and I know in the private group that we have, this question comes up a lot. Like, what do you guys do with raw footage? Who owns it? And what about your IP and blah, blah, blah. And back in the day, like I cared so much. I shouldn't say so much. I think I was taught to care about it. But at the end of the day, 20 years in, I'm like, I don't care. Like if I'm creating a personal piece, like maybe I would care more about that as like art and like my own thing. But if we're getting hired by a client, like if they want to use all of it, if we have to sign an NDA and we can't use this for marketing, that's okay. Like the client, like they're the ones hiring us to do the thing. And I used to get offended when our wedding clients were like, no, you can't share my, stuff on your website. I'm like, but this is what, this is why I'm giving you the deal that we're giving. Not really giving them a deal. But at least in our default contract, we do a shared rights, so that just we're saying, hey, we can share this on our website, we can use it for our marketing. And I would say 10% of the time we have our clients come back and say, nope, not shared rights, like we own the rights. We can give you permission if you ask on certain shots or certain videos that you produce for us, and we might give you the permission to be able to use it. But we're taking full ownership of the stuff, and I'm always like, for sure, like yeah, make that. We've already got a backup contract that has that wording in it, and so we just pivot to that one. But just as you're listening, thinking like, what should I do? That's what we do. I don't know if that's like the right or the best way that it works for us, and that's the
right or the best way is what works for you. And the right or the best way is to have that conversation early and often as you're signing a client about how it's going to work. Yeah, I think what you're doing is great.
Yeah. Thank you. Ashley, this has been so good. Tons of information here. I want you to get back to the beach. So how can people connect with you, follow along with all of the things?
Absolutely. So I do like some training and contract forms at kickashlaw.com. If you need legal, the law makes me keep that separate from the training. So that's Ashley at sandstarlaw.com. And just for fun, I do Kick Ash Life. I have a blog and a podcast that has nothing to do with the law because life is fun.
Oh, so good. Thank you so much. How do you want to leave our listeners today?
Oh, well, I would like to leave you happy and full of joy and life and vibrance. But I also want to leave you a link in Ryan's show notes. So if you are a small business owner and just need some very basic forms, particularly if you're the one-on-one coaching or in that kind of space, then there'll be a link in Ryan's show notes with a discount for you. But if you want something more specific, then be happy to talk with you. It should be fun.
Love it. Ashley, thank you so much. You're so generous for your time and your resources and all of your wisdom. So appreciate you, and go enjoy the beach, please.
Yeah, the sun is just starting to peek out. So timing's everything.
So good.
Thanks, Ryan.
See ya. All right, my friend, thank you for making it this far. Don't go yet. Hang on. Couple of things. I want to know your takeaways. Was this a good episode? Was it helpful? Go sign up, give Ashley your email and all of the things, and make sure that you follow her. Go buy her templates. She's given us a discount, so the links are in the show notes. If there's a big takeaway, leave it in the comments. Let me know how this episode is helpful for you. Hopefully my stories getting sued and all that didn't scare you away, or just make you think like, wow, Ryan, what is he doing? What kind of shop is he running over there? I do want to remind you one more time before we kind of go into full like promo mode on the Onward Summits. We haven't officially announced the dates. I'm unofficially asking you to pencil in some dates, because I think these are the dates that they're going to be, and then we're going to open the doors, and you're going to get the biggest discounts if you are on our email list. So the Onward Summit is our in-person event for video business owners. It's hosted at our studio in Metro Detroit. It's usually 3.5-ish days long, Sunday nights to Wednesday. And the dates that we're whispering right now, I should have checked my calendar, but I think it's October 6th, if that's the Sunday, maybe that's the 7th, something like that, through the 9th. Those are the tentative dates. More information is going to be coming out in the next few weeks, but I want you to lock those dates in. If you are thinking about the Onward Summits, you can learn all about the Onward Summit if you go to studiosherpas.com/onward, and lots of videos, testimonials, people that have attended this event. Everybody loves it. It's amazing. The only thing I would say that has stopped people in the past is you got to pay for it, right? So it costs money to like come up to Detroit if you're not local, and there's, you know, like to register for the event and stuff. It costs money because it costs money to put the thing on. And then the other thing is like people get jobs, production jobs that make them money. And so that's been the other excuse like why people don't come. So I'm telling you now, lock it in your schedule. And if a client says, hey, can we shoot on October 7th? You're gonna be like, oh no, we could do the 10th. We could do it the day before, because I've got this incredible event up in Detroit, Michigan that I'm gonna be going to help educate me and to help me serve you in better ways, okay? So there you go, little insider info, tips on when the Onward Summit is probably happening, but get ready, okay? I want you to start saving your pennies, and I want you to come join me. This could potentially be the last one I'm doing, and I'm not trying to create like false scarcity. I'm gonna contemplate my life after this event and really figure out if I wanna continue doing this event in this capacity, how I have been for the last, this will be number 5. And I love it to death. I just don't know if it makes sense financially to keep doing it. So that's all I've got. Thank you, I appreciate you. I want to cheer you on, and I wanna keep, just doing whatever I can to serve you and to help you in this capacity. So don't be a stranger. My email is Ryan, RYAN, @studiosherpas.com. And that's it. Talk to you real soon. See ya.